She was tied to a tree and left to die in a wolf cave, until a Lakota warrior found her and freed her. The sun was just beginning to dip behind the thick trees, sending long shadows across the forest floor. Birds had quieted and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Elena walked cautiously, her heart beating faster with every step. She had been traveling alone for hours, following a small path that twisted through the dense woods. The air smelled of wet earth and pine, and the sounds of distant streams whispered secrets she could not understand. She had always loved the forest, finding comfort in its quiet beauty. But tonight, it felt different. Dark, heavy, and full of danger she could almost sense but could not yet name. Suddenly, a snap of a twig behind her made her stop in her tracks. Elena spun around, but the shadows among the trees seemed empty. She felt a chill run down her spine, a warning she couldn't ignore. Then, before she could move, strong hands grabbed her from behind. They were quick and firm, pulling her off the path and into a hidden clearing. She struggled, but it was useless. There were too many, and they were too strong. Fear gripped her like a cold hand around her heart. She had no idea who they were or why they wanted her. The last thing she remembered before being overpowered was the strange, almost silent whisper of the forest, as if it were trying to warn her. When Elena opened her eyes again, she found herself tied to a tree. The ropes were rough against her wrists and ankles, biting into her skin. She tried to pull free, but the knots were tight and secure. Her heart raced as she looked around. The clearing was small, surrounded by tall pines that blocked the last light of the sun. In the distance, she could see the entrance to a large cave. A chill ran through her as she noticed its dark, yawning mouth. The story she had heard as a child about wild wolves and dangerous caves flashed in her mind. Her captors had left her here, and it was clear they did not intend to return. They had walked away without a word, disappearing into the forest like shadows themselves. Panic surged through her. Elena's mind raced with questions she didn't have answers to. How could she survive? What if the wolves came? What if she could not free herself? She tugged at the ropes again, but every movement only made them cut deeper into her skin. Her fingers ached, her arms trembled, but she refused to give in to despair. She knew that panicking would not help her. She had to think, to find a way to survive until someone could help, or until she could help herself. The sun disappeared completely, leaving the forest in deep twilight. The cave loomed before her, dark and silent, but Elena could feel a faint sense of movement inside. The wind shifted, carrying with it a strange, musky smell. Her stomach knotted with fear as she realized that wolves might indeed live inside. Her imagination ran wild with terrible thoughts, but she forced herself to breathe slowly, trying to calm her racing heart. Fear could only make her weaker. She needed to stay alert, to watch, to listen, and to act if the opportunity arose. Night fell quickly in the forest. The temperature dropped, and a thin layer of fog began to creep along the ground. Elena shivered, hugging herself as much as her ropes would allow. She tried to quiet her mind, listening carefully to the sounds of the forest. There was the rustle of leaves as small animals scurried through the underbrush. There was the occasional hoot of an owl, and then, faintly, almost too soft to be real, she heard a low growl from the cave. Her eyes widened in terror, but she forced herself to look. The growl came again, deeper this time, echoing from within the dark mouth of the cave. Elena's stomach churned, but she knew she had no choice but to face it. She could not give up. She would not give up. She began testing the ropes again, slowly and carefully. Her fingers moved along the rough fibers, looking for any weakness. She tried to loosen the knots, pulling gently, then harder, then more carefully. Hours seemed to pass like this, her muscles straining, her mind focused only on escape. At one point she thought she felt the rope give just a little. Her heart jumped with hope. She kept working, small movements at a time, until finally her wrist slipped free. Relief flooded through her, but she did not celebrate. There were still ropes around her ankles, and she could not move freely yet. Every second counted now. She had to be quiet. She had to be smart. The forest around her was alive with sounds. She could hear leaves moving, small creatures scuttling, and somewhere in the distance the faint howl of a wolf. It was not close, but it was a reminder of the danger she faced. Elena took a deep breath, pulling herself closer to the tree. She tested the rope around her ankles. It was difficult, but with careful twisting and patient effort, she managed to slip one foot free, then the other. Her body was sore, her skin raw, but she had escaped the first trap. She was free in the sense that she could move, but the forest was still full of threats. The cave, with its wolves, loomed behind her, dark and mysterious. She did not know what lay inside, but she had to move. She had to find safety. Elena took her first steps away from the tree, slow and careful, listening to every sound. The fog made it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. Shadows moved across her path, and she flinched at every small sound. But as she walked, she noticed something about the forest she hadn't paid attention to before. Despite the fear, there was beauty here. Soft moss under her feet, the smell of pine and wet earth, the quiet song of a stream nearby. Her mind, though still filled with fear, began to notice the details. She realized that survival would depend not just on strength but on awareness. She had to pay attention to everything. Time passed slowly, measured by the shifting shadows and the changing sounds of the forest. Elena moved cautiously, trying to put as much distance between herself and the cave as possible. But no matter how careful she was, she could not escape the feeling of being watched. Every crack of a branch, every rustle of leaves made her heart leap. She knew she had to find help, someone who could guide her out of this forest. But at the same time, she knew she had to rely on her own instincts until that person arrived. She had learned to be patient, to move quietly, and to trust her senses. Survival was not just about speed. It was about careful observation and careful decision-making. Hours passed, though she could not be sure. The night was long and cold, and Elena's body was exhausted from the struggle and the tension. She found a small clearing near a stream and decided to rest for a moment, keeping low to the ground. She drank a little water, feeling the cool liquid flow through her dry throat. She thought about her life, her family, and the people she loved. The thought gave her strength. She could not let this be the end. She had to survive, not just for herself, but for them too. The forest was dangerous, yes, but she had discovered a strength she had known she possessed. Determination burned inside her brighter than fear. Just when she began to feel a small sense of hope, a new sound reached her ears. It was faint, almost hidden by the rustle of the wind, but it was there, a voice, distant, calling out softly. Elena froze, straining to hear. The voice came again, more clearly this time, calm and steady. Her heart leaped. Someone was here, someone who could help. But the voice did not call from the direction of the cave. It came from deeper in the forest, a place she had not yet explored. Her fear returned, mingled with hope. Could this be a friend? A rescuer? She did not know, but she had to find out. She could not stay here, not with the cave behind her and the wolves near it. With careful steps she moved toward the sound, every sense alert. The forest seemed to shift around her, shadows dancing in the fog and the wind carrying the distant voice closer. Elena's journey was far from over, but for the first time since she had been captured, she felt a spark of hope. She was alone, tired and frightened, but she was alive. And survival, she realized, would require courage, patience, and the determination to never give up, even in the darkest night. Elena moved carefully through the forest, her eyes scanning every shadow, her ears straining to catch every sound. The distant voice she had heard earlier had faded, leaving only the rustling of leaves and the whispering wind. But her heart carried a spark of hope. She knew that she could not go back to the clearing by the cave. The danger there was too great. Wolves could be lurking inside, and her captors might return at any moment. Every step she took was slow and deliberate, placing her feet on soft moss and hidden roots so that she would not make noise. The forest was alive around her, Owls hooted from high branches, and small creatures scurried underfoot, their tiny claws scratching against fallen leaves. Elena tried to focus, reminding herself that every sound could be a clue or a warning. Her body ached from the struggle of freeing herself from the ropes, but she pushed the pain aside. Each movement was a test of patience and endurance. She found a small stream and knelt to drink, the cold water refreshing her parched throat. She thought about how long she had been tied up, how close fear had been, and how strong her determination had grown. She realized that she had survived the first challenge, but she still had a long way to go. The forest stretched endlessly around her, and she had no map, no guide, only her instincts. She needed to keep moving. As she followed the stream, she noticed signs that someone else had passed this way. Broken branches and footprints partially covered by mud suggested recent movement. Elena's heart pounded with both fear and curiosity. Could it be the same people who had captured her? Or was it someone who could help? She decided to move cautiously, keeping her eyes on the ground and her ears tuned to every sound. The forest could hide both danger and safety, and she had to be ready for either. The light was fading further as the night deepened. Shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, and the fog rolled closer to the ground, wrapping around roots and rocks like silent fingers. Elena felt a shiver run down her spine. She had to find a place to rest, but it had to be safe. She looked for a small area sheltered by trees, away from the cave and any obvious paths. After a while she found a low clearing, hidden by a ring of bushes. She crouched down, her body curled up to keep warm. She pressed her hands against the soft moss beneath her, letting herself feel the quiet comfort of the forest for a moment. Even in the dark there was beauty here, and that beauty gave her strength. Her mind, though exhausted, refused to rest. She thought about what had happened, how suddenly she had been captured, tied up, and left in danger. She thought about the ropes, the cave, and the distant growls, but she also thought about her determination, the small victories she had achieved by freeing herself, and the hope she carried that someone might find her. Eleanor realized that survival was as much a mental challenge as a physical one. She had to keep her mind sharp, her senses alert, and her spirit strong. She repeated quietly to herself, "I will survive. I will not give up." The words felt like a shield around her heart. Hours passed slowly. The forest seemed endless, and the night stretched on like a long, dark ribbon. Elena tried to keep track of time by watching the movement of the fog and the position of the moon through the trees. Every sound made her jump, but she reminded herself to stay calm. Panic would only slow her down. She practiced quiet breathing, keeping herself steady and alert. The distant howl of a wolf echoed again, this time closer. Her stomach tightened, but she forced herself to focus. She had to remember that wolves, though dangerous, often avoided humans if they could. Her goal was to stay calm, move carefully, and find safety. As she continued, Elena noticed something unusual. Among the trees she spotted tracks, large footprints pressed into the soft earth. At first she thought they might belong to the wolves, but the shape was different. The footprints were too organized, too deliberate, like someone walking carefully through the forest. Her curiosity mixed with caution. Whoever had left these tracks might be a friend, or they might be someone dangerous. Elena decided to follow them from a distance, keeping low and moving silently. She had learned that in the forest, patience was as valuable as speed. The tracks led her deeper into the woods. The forest grew denser, the trees closer together, their branches intertwining overhead to block the moonlight. Elena moved with care, stepping over roots and ducking under low branches. Her heart was pounding with anticipation. Every step was a test of her endurance and her wits. She thought about how her life had changed in such a short time, from a peaceful walk to a terrifying struggle for survival. But she also realized that she was stronger than she had known. Each moment of fear, each struggle, had prepared her for the challenges ahead. After what felt like hours, Elena came to a small clearing. There, she saw a figure moving in the shadows. At first she froze, unsure whether to approach or hide. But then she noticed something that calmed her. a sense of carefulness in the person's movements, a deliberate and calm presence. He was not running or hiding. He was moving quietly, watching the forest as if he belonged there. Elena's curiosity and hope outweighed her fear. She stepped carefully into the clearing, making her presence known without alarming him. The man turned slowly, his eyes alert but not hostile. He was tall and strong, with long hair tied back, wearing simple clothing that blended with the forest. He carried no weapons in a threatening way, but there was a sense of power and confidence in the way he moved. Elena's heart skipped a beat. Could this be someone who could help her? She took a deep breath and called out softly, "Hello, I need help." The man's expression softened as he approached cautiously. He knelt a short distance away, keeping his movements calm and respectful. "You are safe now," he said quietly. "Do not fear." Elena felt a wave of relief wash over her. His voice was calm and steady, and it carried a sense of understanding and care that made her feel slightly less alone. She nodded, her body trembling with exhaustion and fear. "Thank you," she whispered. I don't know what to do." He gestured for her to follow him slowly, carefully. "We must move carefully," he said. "There is danger in the forest, but we will find safety." Elena nodded again, trusting him. She had no other choice. Every step they took was deliberate, avoiding broken branches and noisy leaves. She noticed how attuned he was to the forest, reading the ground, the trees, and the wind like a story he had known all his life. Elena realized that she was in the presence of someone who understood the forest in a way she could not yet comprehend. As they moved, he asked her gently about what had happened. Elena told him the story in small, careful sentences. She explained how she had been captured, tied to the tree, and left near the cave. He listened quietly, nodding occasionally, but never interrupting. When she finished, he said, "You are brave. Many would not have survived this far. But bravery alone is not enough. We must be careful. Always."
Elena nodded again, feeling both humility and gratitude.
She knew she had been lucky, but she also knew that she had made choices that kept her alive. The forest began to change as they moved. The trees grew taller, the fog thinner, and the sounds of the night quieter. They reached a small stream, where he helped her drink and rest briefly. He showed her how to move silently, how to watch for danger, and how to stay alert, even while exhausted. Elena listened carefully, absorbing every word. She realized that survival was not just about escaping danger. It was about understanding the world around her, respecting it, and using knowledge to stay safe. Hours passed, but Elena felt stronger than she had in the clearing near the cave. She had learned to move carefully, to trust her instincts, and to take courage even in the darkest night. The man's calm presence gave her confidence, and the knowledge he shared made her feel less alone in the forest. For the first time since she had been captured, she allowed herself a small sense of hope. She realized that survival was not just about fear, it was about courage, wisdom, and patience. And with these, she could face the night and whatever challenges lay ahead. The forest began to shift as night deepened. Shadows lengthened, and the wind whispered softly through the tall trees, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and pine. Elena had been walking carefully beside the man she had found in the clearing. His presence was calm, steady, and almost protective, and though she did not yet know him, she felt a strange sense of trust. Every movement he made was deliberate, measured, and careful. He seemed to know the forest as if it were a part of him, reading its sounds, smells, and signs like a story. Elena's exhaustion from the ropes, the fear and the cold began to melt slightly, replaced by awe and hope. The man finally paused in a small clearing beside a slow-moving stream. Moonlight reflected on the water's surface, creating a soft glow. "You are safe here for now," he said, his voice low and gentle, yet firm. "We will rest, but not for long. The forest is alive, and danger moves quietly." Elena nodded, grateful for the chance to sit Her legs ached, and her arms still bore the marks of the rough ropes. She sank to the ground, letting her back rest against a moss-covered tree trunk. The air was cold, but the calm presence of the man beside her made it feel less threatening. As she looked at him more closely, she noticed his features. He had long, dark hair tied neatly behind his head, and his eyes were deep, dark, and attentive. His face was strong and kind. A face that had seen much of the world but was not hardened by cruelty. He wore simple clothing that allowed him to move freely through the forest, and he carried a small bundle of tools and supplies at his side. Elena realized that he was not just a man of the forest, he was a warrior, someone trained in survival, tracking, and understanding the land. She felt a mix of relief and admiration. She had survived on her own, but now she had someone who could guide her to safety. After a brief pause, he spoke again. "Tell me what happened. Speak slowly and clearly." Elena took a deep breath, steadying her voice. She explained how she had been captured by strangers, tied to a tree, and left near the cave where the wolves lived. She described the rough ropes, the fear, and how she had managed to free herself. The man listened without interrupting, his eyes never leaving her face. There was a quiet respect in his gaze, as if he understood the courage it had taken for her to survive. When she finished, he nodded. "You are brave," he said softly. "Many would not have lasted through such a night, but bravery alone is not enough. Knowledge, patience, and calmness are just as important. You have begun to learn that." Elena felt a surge of pride. She realized that her fear and determination had carried her this far. She had survived because she had refused to give up, because she had listened to the forest, and because she had trusted herself when no one else was there. Now, with the warrior beside her, she felt that her chances of survival had increased even more. The warrior stood and extended a hand to help her up. Elena hesitated for a moment, then took it. The contact was firm and reassuring. "We must move carefully," he said. "The forest can hide danger, and not all who walk it are friendly. Even those who seem helpful can have other intentions. But I will guide you. Trust the path I choose." Elena nodded, feeling a combination of trust and curiosity. She followed him, stepping lightly over rocks and roots, keeping her movements quiet. Every sense was alert, every shadow watched. The forest was no longer just a backdrop. It was a partner in her survival, full of warnings, signs, and secrets. As they moved, the warrior taught Elena small lessons about the forest. "Listen to the wind," he said. "It can carry warnings. Hear the small movements in the underbrush. They tell you what is near. Smell the air. It tells you who has passed through. The forest speaks to those who know how to listen." Elena absorbed every word, realizing that survival required more than strength. It required awareness, patience, and respect. She practiced moving quietly beside him, bending her knees slightly, stepping softly, and keeping her balance. Each small success gave her confidence. She felt that she was learning skills she would carry for the rest of her life. The night grew colder. Mist clung to the ground, curling around roots and fallen logs. Elena shivered, drawing her arms around herself, but the warrior's presence remained steady beside her. Occasionally, he would glance at her, ensuring she was keeping pace and safe. The forest was alive with sounds, the distant howl of a wolf, the rustle of leaves, the whisper of wind. Elena realized how easily danger could approach without warning. Her heart beat faster with every unfamiliar noise, but she remembered the warrior's advice. She focused on breathing slowly, observing everything carefully, and moving with intention. After a long while, they reached a small clearing where a few old trees formed a protective circle. The warrior knelt beside a fire he had carefully lit, the flames casting a warm glow against the dark trees. He motioned for Elena to sit beside him, and she gratefully sank to the ground. The firelight reflected in her eyes, making her feel both safer and more vulnerable at the same time. The warmth spread through her, easing some of the stiffness in her limbs. She realized that she had not felt this sense of safety since she had been tied to the tree near the cave. The warrior fed her a small amount of dried meat and water. Elena ate quietly, still overwhelmed by everything she had endured, but she felt a little stronger with each bite. He watched her carefully, his expression calm but attentive. "You must regain your strength," he said. "Tonight is not yet over. We must be prepared for what comes next." Elena nodded. She trusted him completely now. She knew that her survival depended on both her courage and the guidance of someone who understood the forest better than she ever could alone. As she rested by the fire, she began to ask questions. "Who are you?" she whispered. The warrior smiled faintly. "I am Wikasa," he said, "a guide and protector. I know these lands. I have walked them for many years, learning their ways. And tonight, fate brought us together." Elena's heart filled with gratitude. She realized that without Wikasa, she might not have survived the night. She also realized that her journey was far from over. She had escaped immediate danger, but the forest was vast, and there were still challenges ahead. Wikasa spoke of the forest in a way that fascinated Elena. He described the patterns of the wind, the behavior of animals, and the signs of approaching storms. He explained how to move silently, how to watch for danger, and how to read the land. Elena listened intently, eager to absorb every lesson. She realized that survival was not just about escaping threats. It was about understanding and respecting the world around her. Each story he told, each lesson he shared, made her feel more connected to the forest and more confident in her own abilities. Night stretched on, but Elena felt a growing sense of calm. The fear that had consumed her earlier was replaced by determination and hope. She realized that she had survived so far because she had refused to give up, because she had paid attention, and because she had trusted her instincts. Now, with Wikasa by her side, she felt that her chances of survival were stronger than ever. She understood that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to keep moving forward despite it. As the fire flickered and the moon rose higher in the sky, Wikasa prepared for the next part of their journey. "We will move deeper into safety soon," he said. "The forest will test us, but together, we will reach a place where you can recover fully." Elena nodded. She felt a surge of hope and determination. She knew that the path ahead would be difficult, but she also knew that she was no longer alone. For the first time since she had been captured, she felt truly safe, guided by someone who understood the forest and the challenges it held. The night continued, but Elena's spirit was stronger than ever. She had faced fear, survived on her own, and now had a guide who could lead her to safety. She understood that the journey ahead would require patience, courage, and careful observation, but she was ready. With Wikasa by her side, she felt that she could face anything the forest might bring. And as the first hints of dawn began to touch the treetops, she realized that a new chapter of her life was beginning, one of survival, growth, and hope. The first light of dawn filtered softly through the tall trees, painting the forest in gentle shades of gold and green. Elena stretched her stiff limbs by the fire, feeling both relief and exhaustion. The night had been long and frightening, but Wikasa had stayed close, guiding her carefully through every step. She realized how much stronger she felt already, not just in her body, but in her mind. She had survived danger on her own, and now, with Wikasa, she felt a cautious sense of safety. Wikasa rose first, his movements quiet and deliberate. He looked around, scanning the forest for any signs of danger. "We must move," he said softly. "The night is over, but the forest still has challenges. Stay close and follow my lead." Elena nodded, trusting him completely. She had learned to follow his instructions without hesitation. Every small movement was deliberate. Placing her feet carefully over roots, bending slightly to avoid branches, listening intently to the sounds of the forest. As they walked, Wikasa spoke calmly, giving Elena instructions that were both practical and reassuring. "Drink water when you need it," he said. "Rest when you can, but do not stop for too long. The forest is quiet now, but it is never still. We must be aware." Elena nodded again, sipping water from a small stream they passed. The cold liquid felt refreshing, washing away the fatigue in her throat and giving her energy for the long journey ahead. They moved slowly through the trees, careful to avoid broken branches and open clearings. The forest seemed alive with hidden eyes, though none appeared threatening at the moment. Vikasa paused frequently to check on her, making sure she was keeping up and moving comfortably. "Your body is tired, but your spirit is strong," he said. "That is what will carry you through. Remember, fear is natural, but it cannot control you." Elena felt a surge of determination. She had learned that survival was not just about escaping danger, it was about mastering one's own mind, staying calm, and making careful choices. After walking for several hours, they reached a small, hidden hollow, protected by tall pines. Wakasa signaled for Elena to sit. "We will rest here for a short while," he said. "You need to recover, but stay alert. The forest always speaks to those who listen." Elena sank onto the soft moss, feeling a strange mix of relief and caution. She looked around at the dappled sunlight filtering through the trees, feeling a sense of peace that had been absent for so long. Wakasa unpacked a small bundle of supplies. He offered her dried fruit and more water. "Eat slowly," he instructed. "Your body needs energy, but you must not rush. Survival depends on care as much as courage." Elena took the food and water, grateful for the nourishment. She felt stronger with each bite, the sharp edge of fear in her chest softening slightly. She realized how important it was to have someone who knew the forest and its dangers. Waikasa's presence was more than guidance. It was protection, teaching her not only survival skills but also patience, awareness, and trust. While Elena rested, Waikasa explained more about the forest. He described the signs of approaching storms, how animals behaved when humans were near, and which plants could be eaten safely. He spoke of the natural balance, how every creature had its role, and how respect for the land and its inhabitants was essential for survival. Elena listened carefully, absorbing every word. Each lesson felt like a shield against fear and danger, giving her confidence she had never felt before. As the sun climbed higher, Wakasa led her further along the hidden paths of the forest. Elena moved with growing skill, stepping quietly, noticing small details like broken twigs, footprints, and the direction of the wind. She realized she was learning to read the forest, to understand its subtle language. The fear she had carried since being captured was still there, but it no longer controlled her. She had learned that courage was not the absence of fear. It was acting even when fear was present. They reached a small river, its water sparkling in the morning light. Wakasa gestured for her to kneel beside him. "Drink deeply," he said. "The body must be nourished, the mind must be clear." Elena drank the cold water, invigorating her. She felt the strength returning to her limbs, and the clarity returning to her thoughts. She realized that survival required attention to both the body and the mind. With Wakasa's guidance, she was learning how to care for herself in ways she had never imagined. As they continued, Wakasa taught her about safety in the forest. He showed her how to spot signs of animals, how to move quietly, and how to recognize potential threats. Each lesson was practical, but also comforting. Elena realized that knowledge was as powerful as courage. The more she understood, the safer she felt, and the less the fear of the unknown could control her. She began to feel a sense of mastery over her situation, a confidence that grew with each careful step. At midday, they paused in a small clearing shaded by tall trees. Waikasa instructed Elena to rest while he gathered firewood. She watched him work, amazed at how skilled he was. Every movement was efficient and precise, showing years of experience in the forest. When he returned, he lit a small fire and offered her a simple meal of cooked grains and fruit. Elena ate slowly, savoring the warmth and nourishment. The forest, once frightening, now seemed to offer comfort in its hidden places. While they rested, Elena began to ask questions about Wakasa's life. He spoke quietly of his experiences, of the knowledge passed down by his people, and of the importance of balance and respect in the natural world. Elena listened, fascinated. She realized that survival was not just about escaping danger, it was about learning, understanding, and respecting the world around her. Each story, each lesson made her feel more connected to the forest and to the life that thrived within it. As afternoon approached, Wakasa packed their supplies and led her further into the forest. The path was narrow, winding, and sometimes steep. Elena's legs ached, but she pushed forward, remembering the lessons of patience, careful movement, and awareness. Wakasa stayed close, guiding her over difficult terrain, offering encouragement and teaching her to observe the world around her. Every step felt like progress, not just physically, but emotionally. She was learning to trust herself and her instincts, as well as the guidance of someone who knew the forest intimately. By evening, they reached a small hidden grove that Wakasa had chosen as a temporary resting place. It was sheltered, quiet, and safe from the paths that others might take. He prepared a small fire and offered her water and a light meal. Elena sat beside him, feeling a sense of relief and gratitude. She realized how far she had come, from the fear and helplessness near the cave to a place of safety, learning, and healing. Her body was recovering, her mind was clearer, and her spirit felt stronger. As the fire crackled, Wakasa spoke of the importance of patience in survival. "The forest tests us," he said. "It challenges fear, exhaustion, and doubt, but it also teaches strength, awareness, and resilience. You have learned much in a short time. But there is more ahead." Elena nodded, feeling a mix of anticipation and determination. She understood that her journey was far from over, but she also knew that she was no longer alone. She had a guide, a protector, and a teacher. She had learned the power of courage, patience, and knowledge. Night fell again, but it felt different this time. The fear that had dominated the first night had lessened. Elena felt a growing sense of confidence and calm. She had faced danger, survived on her own, and now was learning from someone who could guide her to safety. She realized that the journey was not just about escaping danger, it was about growth, understanding, and resilience. Each lesson, each careful step was building her strength for the challenges yet to come. Before resting for the night, Wakasa reminded her to stay alert even while sleeping. "Rest is important," he said, "but the forest never truly sleeps. Listen, observe, and be ready." Elena nodded, feeling both gratitude and trust. She curled up beside the fire, the warmth comforting her, and allowed herself to feel hope. She had been through terror and fear, but she had survived. She had learned, grown, and discovered strength she had not known existed. And with Wakasa beside her, she felt that she could face the journey ahead. As the night deepened, Elena reflected on the past hours. She had been tied to a tree, abandoned near a dangerous cave, and left to face the unknown. Yet she had survived. She had freed herself, followed signs in the forest, and now walked beside someone who could guide her to safety. Her mind and body were healing, and her spirit was stronger than ever. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. She was learning that survival was as much about wisdom, observation, and patience as it was about bravery. With the stars shining above and the fire casting a gentle glow, Elena felt a sense of peace. The forest, once frightening, now seemed full of life, lessons, and hidden guidance. She understood that the journey was not over, but she was ready. With Wakasa by her side, she had hope, knowledge, and the courage to face the days ahead. And in that quiet moment, she allowed herself to believe that she would not only survive, but thrive. The morning sunlight filtered gently through the tall trees, casting soft golden rays across the forest floor. Elena stretched her limbs, feeling a mix of soreness and strength. The journey had been long and difficult, but she had grown stronger in ways she had never imagined. She looked around at the quiet forest, breathing in the fresh, earthy air. Driven News on the first time in what felt like forever, she felt truly calm. The fear that had gripped her since being captured was still a memory, but it no longer controlled her. She had survived, learned, and grown. Wakasa was already awake, moving silently through the trees. His presence was steady and calm, a constant reassurance. He had taught Elena how to move carefully, read the signs of the forest, and trust her instincts. She realized that she had learned more in these few days than she could have imagined, and it was all because someone had guided her patiently and with respect. Wakasa noticed her watching him and gave a small, approving nod. "Today we continue," he said quietly. "The path ahead will lead us to safety and to those who can help you fully recover." Elena felt a surge of hope. She had never imagined that she would make it this far. Every step she had taken had been difficult, every decision critical. She remembered the cold fear of being tied to the tree near the cave, the darkness, the growls of wolves, and the uncertainty of being alone in the forest. Now, with Wakasa by her side, she had gained knowledge, skill, and confidence. She knew how to move carefully, how to observe, and how to stay alert. She knew that survival was not just about running or hiding. It was about understanding the world around her and trusting herself. As they walked along a narrow path, Elena noticed the forest opening up gradually. The trees grew farther apart, and the sunlight streamed down more freely. Birds sang more boldly, and the sounds of small animals scurrying in the underbrush were louder. It was as if the forest itself was signaling a change, a move from danger to safety. Elena felt her heart lift at the thought. She had been through so much, yet here she was, moving toward a future she could not yet fully imagine. Wakasa guided her carefully, teaching her small lessons along the way. He showed her how to find edible plants, how to identify signs of danger from tracks and broken branches, and how to use the wind to understand what was nearby. Elena absorbed everything, realizing that every skill was another shield against fear. Each lesson was practical, but also empowering. She felt her confidence growing not just in the forest, but in herself. She was learning that courage was not only about facing danger. It was about preparing, observing, and acting with wisdom. By midday, they reached a small stream that sparkled in the sunlight. Wakasa knelt beside it and gestured for Elena to drink. "You have come far," he said. "Your body needs strength, but your spirit is even more important. Remember what you have learned here."
Elena drank deeply, feeling the cold water revive her.
She thought about the past days, the fear, the struggle, the lessons, and the moments of hope. She realized that she was no longer the same person who had been tied to that tree. She had grown stronger, wiser, and more aware of the world around her. As they continued, Wakasa pointed out the tracks of animals, the direction of the wind, and subtle signs in the forest that indicated safety. Elena followed closely, her senses sharp, her movements careful. She realized how much she had changed. Where she had once been paralyzed by fear, she now felt capable and prepared. She knew how to watch, listen, and respond. She had survived not only because of Wakasa, but because she had trusted herself and taken careful, deliberate action. The afternoon sun warmed the forest, and the path began to lead them toward a small clearing. In the distance, Elena could see signs of human life. Smoke rising from a small village, the faint sound of voices, and the glimmer of structures among the trees. Her heart quickened with excitement and relief. She had made it this far. She would soon be among people who could help her fully recover and provide the safety she had been denied for so long. Wakasa motioned for her to slow down as they approached the village. "Be calm," he said softly. "We are close to safety, but you must remain aware. Not everyone you meet will understand, and the forest has taught you patience." Elena nodded, her heart pounding with anticipation. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had survived so much, yet she still understood that the journey was not entirely over. As they entered the village, the people noticed them. Wakasa led Elena carefully through the pathways, introducing her to the elders and explaining her situation. The villagers welcomed her with warmth and kindness, offering water, food, and blankets. Elena felt a wave of relief and gratitude. She had been through terror and fear, but now she was surrounded by people who cared. The forest, Wakasa, and her own courage had carried her to safety. Elena spent the next few days in the village, recovering physically and emotionally. Her body healed from the strain and injuries of her capture and the forest journey. Her mind gradually found peace. aided by the gentle guidance of Wakasa and the kindness of the villagers. Each day she learned more about the forest, the people, and herself. She realized that she had grown stronger, more capable, and more aware. Her fear no longer ruled her actions. Instead, she felt confidence, resilience, and hope. During her recovery, Wakasa continued to teach her. He explained the importance of balance, respect, and observation, not only in the forest but in life. Elena listened, fascinated by the wisdom in his words. She understood that her journey had been more than a struggle for survival. It had been a path to understanding herself, the natural world, and the importance of trust, courage, and patience. One evening, as the sun set over the village, Elena sat with Wakasa by a small fire. She looked at the sky, painted in shades of pink and orange, and reflected on how far she had come. She remembered the cold fear of being tied to the tree, the darkness of the cave, the growls of wolves, and the long, careful journey through the forest. She also remembered her own determination, the small victories of freeing herself, and the lessons Wakasa had taught her. She realized that she had survived not just by luck, but by courage, awareness, and resilience. Wakasa smiled at her quietly. "You have learned much," he said. "You have faced fear. You have survived danger, and you have grown stronger. Remember that strength comes from knowledge, patience, and the courage to continue, even when the path is difficult." Elena nodded, feeling a sense of gratitude and pride. She knew that she would carry these lessons with her forever. The days in the village passed peacefully. Elena learned to move with confidence, care, and awareness. She formed bonds with the people who had helped her, sharing stories, laughter, and moments of quiet reflection. She realized that her journey had been transformative. She had been terrified and alone, yet she had survived and grown stronger. The forest, Wakasa, and her own courage had shaped her into someone capable, aware, and resilient. One morning, as she stood at the edge of the village looking out at the forest, Elena felt a deep sense of gratitude. She thought about the journey, the fear, the struggle, and the lessons she had learned. She realized that she was no longer the same person who had been tied to the tree near the cave. She had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident. She understood the value of courage, patience, and knowledge. She had survived and she had grown. Wakasa joined her, standing quietly at her side. "The forest will always be a part of you," he said. "You have learned its lessons, and you will carry them with you. Remember that courage and wisdom walk together, and that every challenge is an opportunity to grow." Elena smiled, feeling a sense of peace she had never known before. She knew that her life had changed forever, and that she was ready for whatever came next. As the sun rose higher, Elena took a deep breath of the fresh forest air. She felt strong, capable, and ready. The journey had been difficult, but it had taught her more than she could have imagined. She had survived danger, learned the ways of the forest, and discovered her own courage and resilience. She had been saved, but she had also saved herself in ways that would stay with her for the rest of her life. With Wakasa by her side, Elena walked forward, confident in her strength, knowledge, and courage. She knew that life would bring new challenges, but she also knew that she could face them. The forest had tested her, taught her, and transformed her. She had survived, and she had grown stronger, wiser, and braver. And as she walked into the light of the new day, she felt a sense of hope, freedom, and possibility that she had never known before.